Welcome to a story that begins in a time of chaos, but grows into a message of peace. This is not the story of a warrior, not the story of a king, and not the story of a conqueror. It is the story of a teacher, a quiet thinker, a man who believed that the world could be changed not by weapons, but by character. His name was Confucius. The world remembers him as Confucius. He was born in 551 BCE in the state of Lu, in what is now part of eastern China. During this period, China was divided into many small states. This time is known as the Spring and Autumn period, a time when political order was breaking down. Powerful families fought for control. Rulers competed with each other. Wars were frequent. Ordinary people lived with uncertainty and fear. The old system of values was weakening. Respect between rulers and subjects was fading. Trust inside families was decreasing. Many people believed society was losing its moral direction. Confucius was born into a family that once had noble status, but by his birth, that status had almost disappeared. His father, Kang He, was a military officer, brave but already old when Confucius was born. His mother, Yan Zhangzai, was much younger. When Confucius was only 3 years old, his father died. His mother raised him alone. They lived in modest conditions. There was no luxury in his childhood. Yet poverty did not stop his curiosity. From a very young age, Confucius showed deep interest in ceremonies, music, and traditional customs. While other children played simple games, he sometimes arranged ritual objects and practiced formal bows, trying to understand ancient traditions. He did not do this because he wanted attention. He wanted meaning. His mother encouraged his love of learning. Though they had little money, she ensured he received basic education. But much of his knowledge came from self-study. Confucius read ancient poems, historical records, and moral teachings. He listened carefully to older scholars. He observed how society functioned. As he grew, he began to ask important questions. Why do rulers fail to lead wisely? Why do people lose respect for one another? Why does power corrupt character? These questions shaped his entire life. In his teenage years, he worked small jobs to support himself. He managed warehouses. He cared for livestock. He kept records for local officials. He did not see these jobs as low or unimportant. He believed every task, if done honestly, builds discipline. By his early 20s, Confucius began teaching. This decision was bold. In ancient China, education was mostly limited to aristocratic families. But Confucius believed education should be open to anyone willing to learn. He welcomed students from different social backgrounds. Some were poor farmers. Some were sons of minor officials. He did not charge high fees. Sometimes students brought simple gifts, like dried meat, to show gratitude. He once said that in teaching there should be no class distinction. This idea slowly changed Chinese society. His teaching style was not based on memorizing facts alone. He asked questions. He encouraged reflection. He wanted students to think deeply about right and wrong. He spoke often about Ren, which can be translated as kindness, humanity, or compassion. To Confucius, Ren was the heart of being truly human. Without compassion, intelligence and power are dangerous. He also emphasized li, meaning proper behavior, respect, and ritual. He believed rituals were not empty traditions, they were training for the heart. When people practice respect daily, it becomes part of their character. Another key idea was yi, righteousness, doing what is morally right even when it is difficult. A person should not act only for profit. A noble person chooses integrity over advantage. He also taught about shao, or filial piety. Respect for parents was, in his view, the foundation of social order. If children respect parents, citizens will respect leaders. Harmony in the family creates harmony in the nation. As his group of students grew, Confucius became known as a serious thinker. He believed that rulers must lead by moral example. If a ruler behaves with virtue, the people will follow naturally. He said that governing by punishment creates fear, but governing by virtue creates shame and self-correction. This idea was revolutionary in a time when harsh laws were common. Confucius hoped to put his ideas into practice. He believed that if he could guide one ruler, he could create a model state that others would follow. Around middle age, he began traveling to different states with a group of loyal students. For more than 10 years, they moved from court to court, offering advice. This period was difficult. Some rulers listened politely but ignored his suggestions. Some leaders were more interested in military strength than moral reform. A few even saw him as a threat. There were times when Confucius and his followers faced hunger. In one state, they were surrounded by enemies and cut off from supplies. His students grew anxious. Some questioned whether their mission had meaning. But Confucius remained calm. He believed that a noble person stays steady during hardship. He taught that moral strength is tested when comfort disappears. Although he was sometimes offered minor positions, he never gained long-lasting power in foreign states. Eventually, he returned to Lu. In Lu, he briefly served in government, possibly as Minister of Justice or a high administrative official. During this short time, order improved, crime reportedly decreased, discipline was strengthened. His ideas seemed to work in practice. However, political jealousy and rival factions made his position unstable. Again, he stepped away from power. In his later years, Confucius focused on teaching and preserving ancient texts. He edited historical records, poetry collections, and ritual manuals. He believed that the wisdom of the past should guide the future. Among his close disciples were Yan He, Zilu, Zigong, and others. Each student had a different personality. Confucius adjusted his teaching to each individual. If a student was too bold, he advised caution. If a student was too shy, he encouraged courage. He believed education should shape character, not just increase knowledge. Tragedy struck when his beloved student Yan He died young. Confucius was deeply grieved. He cried openly. This moment shows his humanity. Though known for discipline, he felt love and loss deeply. He also lost his son, Kong Li. These personal losses added sadness to his final years. As he aged, he reflected on his life journey. He described stages of personal growth. At 15, he committed himself to learning. At 30, he stood firm. At 40, he had no more confusion. At 50, he understood heaven's will. At 60, he listened easily. At 70, he could follow his heart without breaking moral law. These words show his belief that growth is lifelong. Perfection is not immediate. It comes slowly. In 479 BCE, Confucius died at age 73.
At the time of his death, he did not see his dream fulfilled. China was still divided. Leaders still fought for power. But his students preserved his teachings. They recorded his conversations in a collection now known as the Analects. Over the next centuries, different philosophical schools competed in China. Legalism emphasized strict laws and harsh punishment. Taoism encouraged natural simplicity and harmony with nature. Confucianism focused on ethical relationships and social responsibility. Eventually, during the Han Dynasty, Emperor Wu officially adopted Confucianism as state philosophy. This decision changed history. Government officials were selected through civil service exams based on Confucian texts.
Education across China centered on his ideas. For nearly 2,000 years, his philosophy shaped East Asian society. Confucian temples were built. Ceremonies honored him. He was given titles such as Supreme Sage and First Teacher. His influence spread to Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. In these countries, respect for elders, emphasis on education, and strong family structures were influenced by Confucian thought. Even in modern times, his ideas remain powerful. Universities worldwide study him. Leadership experts quote his teachings about ethical authority. His belief that leaders must serve as moral examples remains relevant in politics and business. There were times when his philosophy faced criticism. During the Cultural Revolution in the 20th century, some leaders rejected Confucian traditions as old and restrictive. Temples were damaged. Books were criticized. Yet history moves in cycles. In later decades, respect for Confucius returned. Today, his name is once again honored. Institutes around the world promote Chinese language and culture under his name. What made Confucius extraordinary was not power, it was consistency. He believed that small daily improvements shape great character. He said that if you make a mistake, do not be afraid to correct it. True wisdom is recognizing your limits. He valued humility. He warned against arrogance. He believed that a person who knows something but pretends not to know is dishonest, and a person who does not know but pretends to know is dangerous. He encouraged self-reflection. Each day, he examined his own actions. He asked himself whether he had been loyal, sincere, and truthful. He taught that society improves when individuals improve. If a son respects his father, if a friend is honest, if a ruler acts with integrity, harmony naturally grows. Confucius did not promise quick success. He promised steady development. His message is simple but demanding. Become better each day. More than 2,000 years later, his influence continues. His statue stands in schools and universities. His words are printed in textbooks. His philosophy remains part of discussions about ethics and leadership. But beyond history and textbooks, his real legacy is personal. Every time a teacher patiently guides a student, his spirit continues. Every time a leader chooses integrity over corruption, his teaching lives. Every time someone chooses kindness instead of anger, respect instead of insult, reflection instead of ignorance, his message survives. Confucius lived in a violent age. He never commanded an army. He never wore a crown. Yet his ideas traveled further than any conqueror of his time. He showed that moral strength is more powerful than physical force. He believed that heaven supports those who act with virtue, even if success comes slowly. His life reminds us that failure in politics does not mean failure in influence. Sometimes seeds grow long after the planter is gone. Confucius planted seeds of thought. Generations harvested them. And perhaps the most beautiful part of his story is this: he never stopped learning. Even as an old man, he remained a student of life. He proved that greatness does not require fame in your lifetime. It requires faithfulness to your principles. If you listen carefully, his voice still whispers across centuries. Respect your parents. Be honest with your friends. Lead by example. Correct yourself before correcting others. Never stop learning. The world today is different from ancient China. Technology has changed. Nations have changed. But human nature remains the same. We still struggle with pride, anger, greed, and fear. We still search for meaning. Confucius offers a quiet path, not dramatic, not violent, but steady. Improve yourself, serve others, act with kindness, and harmony will follow. This is the story of a teacher who never ruled a kingdom, yet helped shape civilizations. His body rests in Khufu, his hometown, but his ideas travel freely, crossing borders, languages, and centuries. And as long as people seek wisdom, the story of Confucius will never truly end.